I've always tried to make it that I like run towards the fear, not away from the fear. Because like once you run away from fear, then fear controls you.
Let's talk about your journey as an artist. Mm-hmm. You started in elementary school.
Yeah, I started pretty young because of you.
Yes.
No, but it's also good. Like, well, I think it even started before. Well, yeah, in elementary school, like, I mean, I would do puppet shows.
Well, in kindergarten,
puppet shows for the neighbors, and I would charge them $0.25 and $0.05 to watch. Jay saw a lot of productions, and I charged him I'd make him sit. Yeah, our neighbor, and I'd make him sit outside in the blistering hot, and then I'd charge him $1 for more than the show for something to drink while he watched the show.
And then in elementary school, you started creating clay pens.
Yeah, I started making clay pens, and I would
sell them.
I would sell them. It happened because I made one clay pen and for like class, and I showed it to you, and you said, "Did you win this?" And I said, "No, I made it." And then you're like, "You should make them." And at that time, I really liked money. I still kind of like money, but I liked money, so I was like, okay, I'll start making clay pens. And so I started making clay pens, and I was making like probably like 50 a week or something like that, and then I'd go around and like try to sell them to people, and I'd get some commissions, and then I'd set up booths at like schools so that people would, and then I started getting into one of your old interns, Mary Connors, taught me how to video edit, and then when I started learning video editing, then I started editing actors' reels, and then
and this was all in elementary school.
Yeah, and then by the time I got to high school, I had wanted to get into, I wanted to get the school I wanted to get into, I didn't get into.
It was Harvard Westlake, and we hate them.
No, we love Harvard Westlake. I have no animosity. I'm glad that what happened, because had I gone to Harvard Westlake, I don't know if I would be the person I am today.
But you flourished.
But I ended up going to this other school. Didn't get into did a but for the people at home that don't know, I had there was a film program at the high school that I went to. I did not get into the film program. So then,
we hate them.
No, we do not hate them. I'm very glad I didn't get into the film program, because had I gotten into the film program, I really don't think I would have gotten into NYU, because I wouldn't have been that hungry to keep making content. But it was because I felt like I had a chip that I felt like I had to prove.
Right.
And that ended up pushing me to make a lot of content. I love my high school.
It's a great high school. It's really a great high school. And you flourished there.
And then I went to NYU, did film.
What made you decide NYU and film school?
It was, to me, I guess I gotta go back into why I love film. So I personally just love film and comedy, because I love the idea of making somebody happy and making them lighter. The reason I got into comedy was I had a friend named Brittany, who she had, you were doing stand-up at the time, and so you would leave me with this family. This is a very weird interview doing it with my mom, but it's because you know everything, so
I'm gonna pretend I don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna pretend you don't. So my mom, this lady you don't know, was a comedian, and she'd work late nights, and she'd leave me with this family, and the family had a daughter, and the daughter was my age, and she had leukemia. So a lot of times I would hang out with them at the hospital, or we'd go to check-ins and stuff like that. And so it was really hard, because I would watch her cry a lot. And one night, I remember I was there, and I had a little walk. For some weird reason, I was like, this day I won't hear her cry, because I just felt so powerless. And I had a little Walkman, and I played, in the audio, I played Britney Spears' Hit Me Baby at One More Time, but I could still hear the audio of her screaming blending in. Like, it wasn't really doing a good job masking it. It just was like screams in the song. So I just started yelling, like, I started screaming, "Hit me, baby, one more time." And her and the nurse looked over and they just started laughing. And that's when I was like, this is what I want to do. And then why I chose NYU was because they seemed to have, like, it seemed to be like a more, one, they had a great program at the time where you could go to London and study film. And I always loved London. So I was like, yes, I want to do that. I want to work at the BBC. I want to do that. And then 2, I chose NYU because I had done the summer program there.
The high school
summer program there, and I loved it. And I also just really wanted to, I didn't, when I was making films, I kind of wanted to learn how to, like, USC is more like, you have more of a team, whereas, like, NYU, it's kind of like, how can you do it with, like, just, like, the bare minimum? And I kind of liked, like, okay, like, let's see how the bare minimum, and then we can add the team later. Like, so I like that idea.
And you learned a lot at NYU, especially your last year.
Yes.
Let's talk about the last year of film school at NYU.
The last year of film school, I had a thesis film, and I did not have the money to make it. Because the biggest thing that was eating up my budget was food. Because I had a very big cast. So I emailed about 100 different companies just saying, like, who would bite to, like, donate some food. And I got some people to donate food, and that ended up being really good.
And
I got a lot of no's, but I got, you know, out of the 100, I probably got maybe, like, 86 no's and, like, 14 yeses. And some of those yeses did come with strings attached, like, oh, you need to promote this, or you need to do this. And I was like, okay, I'll do what I gotta do. Like, I remember I had to pass out flyers, like, for a sandwich place. Like, I was busking on the street being like, hey, go to this sandwich place, go to this sandwich place. But it ended up being great because then I was able to make my film and not have to worry about, like, hey, are these people being fed?
Right, and at the beginning of that film, you, in your class, you got a lot of... It wasn't good.
Yeah, I got a lot of pushback for the film because it had too much heart and sentimentalism. It was I wanted to make a Hallmark movie, and everyone was like, "Well, gross! Like, why are you making a Hallmark movie?" And I just was like, "No, I want to make this," and I just kept doing it, and it ended up. I was pleased how it came out. It was interesting. Not everything that I would have liked to come from that movie came from that movie, but there have been, like, nice little kisses that come every now and then. Like, I had, like, a middle schooler send me, like, a little letter being like, I watched your film and I like it and I hope one day we work together. And I remember getting that letter and I wasn't doing anything creative, like a year later, and I was like, okay, I gotta get back to work because this third grader believes in me, you know? So sometimes it's nice, like, when you leave, like, things like that pop up and you're like, okay, I guess I'll keep going.
And so when you graduated, you thought something magnificent was going to happen.
Yeah, when I graduated, I definitely thought everything was going to happen. I thought I was going to sell all these scripts, and I thought that people were going to be like, hey, like, come do this, and it really wasn't. Nothing really happened. It was just a lot of people not answering phone calls and not answering emails, and I kind of spiraled for a second where I felt, like, a little bit depressed, and then I started making, like, one piece of art a day and posting it online without, like, the outcome to any, like, results or anything. And then I started feeling better because I was like, oh, I have control over, like, this little thing that I'm making. And
then you got a job working at DreamWorks.
Yes.
And then towards the end of that, you took a class.
Yeah, so I started taking improv classes while I was at DreamWorks, just because it was, like, when I was working at DreamWorks, I was working in an admin kind of part, like an admin role. So it was like I got to see everybody having fun, but, like, I didn't get to have any fun. Like, it was like it's almost like if you wanted to eat cake and then your job was window cleaning outside of a cake store, and then you had to watch everybody else eat cake, and you're just like, but I want to be that person. So I was like, let me take improv classes so that I can feel a little bit more, because everyone at DreamWorks, like the vicinity I worked in, I was working with all these people that were writers, directors, actors, and I was like, I just want to be where the people are. And so I took improv class just to like get out like some of the things, and so that I could then feel like, no, actually, like I can do these things, even though I feel like and it ended up being like really great, but I did have a really bad improv experience where basically I had a teacher. I was doing really well in improv, and I was going to this really tough school, and I got passed pretty quickly. Like,
we hate them.
No, we love them. We don't hate them. I got passed pretty quickly up the ladder, and one teacher, like every other teacher, was very supportive. Like, you're doing good work. We really like you. And then I had one teacher that was like, you suck. We don't think you'll ever make it in comedy. You're not funny. And I went into a little bit of I just started then feeling like I had I got tense when I would perform, and then I had like anxiety, and I would actually like get like physically like worried when I'd have to perform, because like something about the words, but I was like, I'm not going to let this dream die with this lady, because I did love what I was doing. And that's how I kind of discovered stand-up.
So from improv,
yeah,
what made you say, I'm going to try stand-up?
Well, so basically what happened was I had this bad taste in my mouth, right? From like the teacher that said, you're no good, you're not funny. And I was like, it's not my dream. It's not going to die on this hill with this lady. So I ended up deciding, like, I need to get my groove back, right? I need to get back to this happy place of performing, because I just didn't want her to steal my joy. And so I started taking a wide range of very different classes. I took like a feminist improv class. I think I may have taken something with animal. Like, I was taking very weird improv things just to get back on track. Like anything. Like if someone was like, hey, they're doing like street singing. Like I was like, okay, let me just try it. And one of your friends, the lovely, talented Karen Haber.
We love Karen Haber.
An amazing comic. She told me about this class, and she said you should take it with this lady named Beth Lapides. And how Karen described the class to me is she said, oh, the class is like, you just go and you just talk about your day. And, that's really all you have to do. You don't prepare anything. It's just like you talking off the cuff. And she was like, and, it really helped all these big comedians. And she listed a bunch of different ones. And she was like, I think it would be a good fit. Like, you might find yourself recreating. Okay, turns out that was not what the class was. But I was late every week. I was late, so I missed the beginning. I missed the intro of what the class was. So all I had was what Karen had said to me. So I get to the class, and every time I got to the class, because I would get there like an hour late. You should never get to any class like an hour, 15 minutes late. So anytime I get there, they would be like, oh, it's your turn. So I get on class. And I start being like, okay, this is how my day was, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I try to make it funny and interesting. And by the end of class, like, the 6th or 8th week, they go, so you want to do stand-up, right? Like, you're doing... And I was like, no, I don't want to do stand-up. And they're like, because that's what you've been doing, like, every week. And I'm like... No, isn't this what the class is about? And she's like, no, it's whatever you want it to bring. You can bring in poems, you can bring in books, you can bring whatever you want, but you've just been talking. And so then Beth Lapides, she was like, I have to say, like, Beth is one of the big reasons I got into stand-up, because Beth was like, you should be doing stand-up, and I was like, no. Like, I literally was like, no. I was like, I will take the class again because I found it very fun and, like, it did open me up, but I don't know if I'll do doing a stand-up. So I stayed in that class for about maybe, like, 9 months to a year. And then finally she was like, look, like, you gotta just, like, get up or get off the pot. Like, she was, like, she kind of was, like, you are very talented, and she says, and I know you want to write, because that's what I wanted to, I was just, like, I was focused on writing, and I was, like, I don't want to do stand-up. My mom did stand-up. Again, my mom, I don't know if you know her.
I don't know her.
This lady named Lydia Nicole, for all of the viewers. But yeah, so she was like, you got to do stand up. So Beth was like, you got to do stand up, or, you know, I know you want to write, but like, this is a good way to get into rooms, because if people see you write, they're going to be like, you know, if people see you're funny, they're going to be like, oh, do you have anything we can read, versus you being like, hey, I'm funny, please read this. You know, please read this. And, you know, so I was like, at that time, I was also ending my job. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this thing a try. I don't really have any other plans, but like, I've tried just writing. I've tried talking to managers and agents. I've tried talking to production companies. Let's just see if like this happens, you know? And, sure enough, she was like right within 6 months or like 9 months.
So when you first got on stage, were you scared?
Yes. Yes, I was. Though I guess I didn't exude like
fear,
but I was afraid. I definitely was shaking, just not physically. But yeah, I was nervous. I remember being nervous. I also remember going to my first open mic, which is where you practice. And I remember, I thought, like, I was supposed to meet someone there. Like, I thought, like, oh, okay, I go to the open mic, and then people are going to be like, and then you go here, or then you're on this show. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I remember staying the whole night. And I just, you should not stay a whole night at an open mic.
Bad.
It was bad.
Bad idea.
It was a bad idea. And then I remember talking to my friend, and he was like, okay, we did it, so when are you going to do it again? And I was like, and then I started, you know, then I just, but I knew I wanted to go back, because, like, once you get that first laugh, it's kind of, like, I remember my first time on stage, I, like, didn't do well. Like, it wasn't, like, a lot of people always have this moment where it was, like, the first time they went on at an open mic, they just murdered, and that did not happen to me. I was on stage for 5 minutes, I got one laugh at, like, 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
But that was the laugh that said, I'm coming back.
I still probably would have come back, but I was like, because, like, and anytime there's a challenge, I would go, I can't, I've always tried to make it that I, like, run towards the fear, not away from the fear. Because, like, once you run away from fear, then fear controls you.
Amen. And we don't like that.
Yeah.
And your mama won't have that.
Yeah, my mama, she should beat me. She whooped me. I've seen a belt. Yeah.
Pow,
she doesn't beat me anymore. Don't worry, guys. I'm safe. I'm not, blink twice if you need to be saved. No, I'm good.
So you started doing stand-up,
Yeah.
and then you started to enter festivals.
Yes.
And what has being in comedy festivals, because you've been in at least 10 festivals since you started doing stand-up.
Yeah,
festivals.
I love it. It's always a new challenge, because there's a couple reasons why I do festivals. One, it's like a good way to like see how your stuff plays in a different market. Because like a lot of times, like sometimes people will also, like, I see this in LA, and I also see this with other people in other places, but it's kind of like, if sometimes people tend to do local comedy. I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard someone say one time that an inside joke is like the funniest joke, because it's like the thing that we all can like relate on, right? Like, it's the thing that, like, it feels like so like, oh, it's a secret to us. So, but what happens sometimes is sometimes people will do so many inside jokes for the region that they're in.
Or the room.
Or
Sometimes
the room they're in. Exactly. The room. And then when they go to other markets, they realize...
Or other rooms.
Or other rooms, they Exactly. Because you can also experience different rooms in here. Like, yeah, you can go do a young show and then do a show that has older people and still have two different... Like, they'll not know what you're talking about if you're like, oh, TikTok. Like, you get what I'm saying? So...
What's talking and ticking? What?
Yeah, so, like, that's one of the reasons why comedy festivals are so great, is because you get to, like, try all these different markets. It's also, like, you get to
test your material.
You get to test your material.
They stand up.
And see how it works. And, like, you see, like, okay, this joke actually needs some work. Like, it doesn't... There's something about this that's... Even if it's not, like, a reference, there's something about this joke that, like, other markets aren't getting. And you're like, okay, it might just be a certain attitude that people, like, can kind of... I don't know. It's like you start figuring out that. And then it's also cool because, like, you get to see, like, try in front of, like... tends to be festivals, too, are a great place to network. Like, as far as networking with other comics and also professional people. Also, another reason why I love festivals is because, one, you also get to travel, which is dope. And then I love festivals, too, because you get to practice in front of larger crowds. Because, like, it depends on, like, where you're starting from. Like, in smaller places, you kind of can practice in front of more people. Like, there's more opportunities to perform in front of... Like, not more opportunities, but I'd say there's more opportunities to perform in large crowds. Like, it's like if you start in LA or New York, you have chances to perform.
You don't have a lot of competition, so
in smaller markets.
It's a smaller group of comics.
Yeah, in like Texas or...
Whereas if you're in LA...
There's a lot of comics.
Or in New York.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you get up that night.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can get up on an open mic, but, like, yeah, like, on shows.
But sometimes you can't get up on an open mic if there's too many comics.
Yeah, though, like, there's, like, nowadays, like, you can... like, if you're doing lotto mics, then, yeah, there might not be a chance. But if you're doing, like, some signed or booked mic, sign up or pre-sign up mics, then you can kind of finagle a way to guarantee. You can get up a few nights in LA. But I've heard in smaller markets, though, they have a harder time on open mics because they do have, like, a limited amount of spots.
Okay. So,
sorry, I know I just conflicted myself.
No.
It's like they're like, people in smaller towns have a time to get on bigger shows,
right.
But they also have, like, a hard time getting, like...
Started.
Yeah, getting staged, more stage time.
Once they get a little seasoned, it's easier to get on the bigger shows. You took Beth's class,
mm-hmm.
and then after that, you started taking some more comedy classes.
Yes.
To work on your writing. So talk about how that's helped you.
So Beth was, like, the one that pushed me out of the nest. And then David Arnold, he teaches a great class called The Art of Stand-Up Comedy. And he really taught me how to, like, fly. Like, right? So, like, Beth was like, you're gonna do stand-up. Bam! And then I was, like, kind of flapping, but I wasn't, like, full potential. And then David was like, okay, this is what you need to do. And, like, David is, like, very, Beth is, like, her methods are very, like, she's just very open, and she's very good at, like, working with you and, like, finding, you know, like, working with you and finding you. And, like, David's, like, how can we, you know, I needed both of them. And David Moore is, like, he's very, like, okay, let's get you out of your comfort zone. Like, now that you know who you are, let's see how we can push this. And let's see how we can make this funny, and how can we exaggerate, and how can you work. Like, I say, like, David is, like, having, like, a boxing teacher.
How did you find your comedy voice?
I think as far as... I mean, honestly, I'm still kind of... I think it was easier because... It's still, like, a process. Like, I'm still finding out, like, certain things, and, like, I feel like I've got a good sense, but I'm still learning every day. But I think how I was able to find my comedy voice was just by doing a lot of different stories and kind of realizing, like, oh, this is, like, me. This is, like, my personality. This is what I'm drawn to. This is what I like. And I remember, you know, Beth was, like, a big component about, like, what are you selling? Who are you? And, like, I remember it kind of like, I feel like sometimes it takes someone else pointing out like, oh, this is what you do naturally, because like you don't even think about it. Like I do a lot of like Beth was describing me, and she said it's almost like you're like a modern day kind of Lucy. Like you get into these weird kind of things and we don't think it's gonna work out for you, but it does. And then it's like, okay, like that's my persona. And I also think, coming from a writer, it's like I think as stand up, it's like, yes, I am myself, but it's also like a heightened version of myself. And it's like looking at that character and going like, okay, so like how can we push it, like how can I describe real events and do it under the guise of like my own voice, and like this is like me. Like I'm a very optimistic person, and so of course like that is gonna boil over into the stand-up. David is an amazing teacher.
He is. He really is phenomenal. One of the things I want to bring up about you is that your work ethic is incredible. You when you started doing stand-up, because I told you, and not helping you. No, I'm telling you. But when you started doing stand-up, you really, really honed in on it, and you know, there have been weeks when you have done 25, 27 rooms a week.
Yeah.
Just going and hitting
doing
those
open
mics.
yeah.
And so, because of that process, anywhere from, let's say, on a slow week, 12 rooms.
Yeah.
Like you've not, you know, when I started doing stand-up, if I got to do 2 rooms in a night, that was huge. But you like, your minimum is like 4 to 5. That's a minimum. That's not, you know, it's
on
like,
a good night we can get like 6, 7. Yeah. No, it is true. I've like grown very fast, and to like only be like 2 years into comedy, like some of the dope opportunities I've been blessed with, like it's really cool, and it is a lot of work. It's like a lot of work. It's like it's like late nights, like after coming back from sets, watching other stand-up, seeing like what are people doing. I think I've done very well because I've gotten my butt kicked so hard. I've gone from very big bombs, and like the next night being like, okay, let's hit some more mics. Even though I'd be like very scared and very like very saddened, or like going through periods of like weeks where it's like this one bit is just not working and people are looking at you like you're a crazy person, and you're like, I think I used to be funny. Like you're kind of like you know, and you just have to trust, like almost like when people were on like a boat, like you gotta just trust that like land is coming soon. And like land does come soon, but sometimes it's like, you know, I love my friends who bear with me and like see me when I'm working on something new and it's not quite anything, and people are like, I thought Lexie was funny. And then when it's always nice,
the process.
But it is the process, and it's always nice when you make it, you know, you make it to see, like David Arnold, he introduced this movie to me called Comedian, which is Jerry Seinfeld reworking his 1 hour, like it's a documentary, and you see him like making an hour from like scratch, and you see him bombing, and you see him being like, oh, am I funny? And I was like, we all, like, it was really, so anytime I'm having like a rough peak, I like watch that and I go like, okay, I'm not alone, like we all go through this, because it's like so vivid to watch. It's cool.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to have you back to talk about all the great stuff that you've amassed. Thank you for joining us. That's all the time we have. If you want to know more about Lexie Grace, just check out the description. It will have information on how to get hold of her, her social media, all that good stuff, comedy books, comedy classes that you might be interested in taking. So thank you again. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you can get all the interviews in real time. Well, that's my time for today. Until next time, see ya.